Good day, and welcome to WorkplaceTV, the first stop towards finding solutions to workplace challenges, whether you're an employee or an employer. My name is Ricardo Granderson, and today I'm excited to be interviewing a colleague and friend, Lyndelle Phillips. Welcome, Lyndelle.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Ricardo. It's my honor and my pleasure to be with you here at WorkplaceTV.
Lyndelle has 20 years of experience in the employment law space, in government, in the private sector, and in financial services. In addition to that, Lyndelle is also lead commissioner of the New York Metropolitan Women's Soccer League, and she also manages a semi-pro women's soccer league that is recognized internationally and nationally. Welcome, Lyndelle, one more time. And I also forgot, because Lyndelle is an extremely accomplished person, that she was recognized as Woman of the Year by the United Youth Soccer Stars of New York. So, Lyndelle, before we get into the substance of the interview, I'd like you to give our viewers a sense of who Lyndelle Phillips is, where you're from, where you went to college, where you went to law school, and how did you end up working in the employment law space. But in addition to that, how did you end up in the soccer space?
Well, thank you, Ricardo. I actually started in employment prior to going to law school. I worked in human resources for a major airline where I was looking at employment issues, weight and height within the airline industry, and subsequently went to law school at the University of California, Hastings College of the Law in San Francisco. I actually started my career in workplace issues right out of undergraduate, where I went to the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio. And I also got my master's degree at the University of Cincinnati in Cincinnati, Ohio. So it was a natural transition for me from human resources issues to workplace and employment law issues after law school.
Excellent. And so the current climate is such that we're hearing about Me Too and what seems to be the spate of all sorts of bad behaviors going on in the workplace. Could you talk briefly about the distinctions between sexual assault as opposed to sexual harassment as defined by Title VII and related statutes? And I'm asking because if you're following either cable news, that there seems to be a regular conflation and intermingling of these terms. So can you talk first about workplace sexual harassment, quid pro quo, as opposed to sexual assault?
Absolutely. The audience should know that there is a large spectrum or a long spectrum of sexual harassment, offensive conduct, inappropriate conduct within the workplace. It can be as strong as rape, sexual violence, and very offensive and physical invasion of a person or the alleged victim. And it can go to uncomfortable feeling, touching, but not rise to the level of criminal cause of action.
All right, let me stop you there and ask you this question. You and I are working together and I ask you out on a date. Is that sexual harassment?
It is, under those circumstances, it is not considered sexual harassment. What can turn into sexual harassment is if I say, no, I'm not interested in dating you, and then you continue, and it becomes an ongoing, continuous, where the employee feels pressured. And that's, you mentioned quid pro quo, and quid pro quo comes into play where you ask me out on a date, I say no, that's not sexual harassment. You continue to ask me out on a date, and then if you are in a position that is superior to mine, or you are in a power position, and you say, Lyndelle, if you go out on a date with me, then I will increase your salary. I will give you a better office. The terms and conditions of your employment are predicated upon the going out with you. That's what quid pro quo is. It's considered literally this for that. I increase your salary, you go out on a date. That's why I said there's a spectrum to sexual harassment. It has to be someone in a power position. It has to be someone who has ongoing and continuous communication with the employee, and the employee has said no.
Now let me ask you this question. I'm walking down the hallway in the office and I see Betty, and I literally just stare at Betty while she's walking down the hallway, and I'm leering. Is that considered something that might fall under the umbrella of sexual harassment?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. The leering, there are descriptions of the type of conduct that falls into the sexual harassment realm. Leering, offensive leering, inappropriate communications with the employee. I thought you were going to mention when Betty walked down the hall, because I've had cases like this where you grabbed Betty by the buttocks or you touched Betty, because touching takes sexual harassment into a whole different realm. And there are cases where there is unwanted and unwelcome touching, and those are parts and places where the law does allow for causes of actions under sexual harassment.
You've been, as always, very thorough in conveying some of the nuances of harassment. Have you had occasion to conduct interviews during the course of your career? I understand that you've been a commissioner and vice president. Did you have occasion to conduct interviews? And if so, what two best practices would you say are essential in conducting a harassment investigation?
Absolutely, and I'm not sure if I can limit it to two. I'm going to give you four. I think that initially the interviewer or the investigator should make sure that the alleged victim or the person who's made the complaint or filed the complaint, that person understands that this is a confidential investigation, and that the investigation, at least to the extent that the law permits, if they divulge something in criminal conduct, it can't necessarily be confidential, but that you have to make them comfortable and feel that they are that they have confidence in the investigation that's being conducted. The law requires this to be a prompt and thorough investigation. So that's one of the things that you have to think about. It can't drag on for months and months and months. It has to be prompt and it has to be thorough. And that can differ depending on the number of witnesses, the nature of the investigation, but confidentiality, prompt and thorough. Make sure that you gather your facts. Make sure you interview all of the witnesses. I've seen situations where certain witnesses were swept under the rug. Nobody ever spoke with them. You didn't get the facts and information. So gather all the facts. And if you need to follow up, and if you need to add witnesses, by all means do that. Conducting an investigation is an opportunity to protect both the employer and the employee. And so therefore, you should make every effort to assure that this is an opportunity to gather all the facts and to be able to present the information to whomever is who is conducting the investigation, so that you're able to go forward or not go forward, and you're able to establish the legal protections versus the non-legal protections. So I think that it's an investigation, and I pride myself, I guess, on the types of investigations for sexual harassment. I happen to have a master's in counseling and I have a law degree, so you put those two skills and qualities together and you can usually conduct not only a thorough but a sufficient investigation in order to determine whether there's validity or the legal liability or potential liability.
Lyndelle, I appreciate that thoughtful response, and I'm going to, as they say, pivot, in that I'm really interested in hearing you talk about your soccer experience, what appears to be your passion. Talk briefly about how you ended up becoming the commissioner of a soccer league, and then I've got a few questions after that as well.
Thank you. Kind of quickly, I actually played soccer when I finished undergraduate school. So in playing, I became familiar with the rules, regulations, and those kinds of things that are kind of germane to being involved in soccer. As league commissioner, interestingly enough, I have to do some of the same things that you do in sexual harassment investigations. Last week, I had to render a decision, and that's what the commissioner does. They're responsible for enforcing rules, making sure that the coaches, the fans, the players are adhering to the rules. So last week, I had to actually render a decision on a coach who was actually acting abusive, offensive, inappropriate, kind of volatile on the sideline with fans. So there was a suspension. So believe it or not, it sounds far-fetched, but the issues that come up within soccer, particularly in the women's league, are not too different than come up in regular, everyday legal issues with sexual harassment complaints. Soccer is fun. The game itself is fun. As league commissioner, I just have a responsibility for making sure that people adhere to the rules and the policies of the league.
Well, I appreciate that answer. And once again, I would be remiss if I did not add for our viewers that your work is such in the soccer space that you impact the lives of many young women, both nationally and internationally, and fostering their play at both the collegiate and professional level. So thank you for that. Before we conclude, I would like for you to share with our viewing audience exactly how they can reach you, whether you have any speaking engagements, whether there are any opportunities in the soccer space or scholarships. How do people find Lyndelle Phillips in order to avail themselves of your services?
I am currently consulting with a sole practitioner and on employment matters and on training issues and an advisory matter. So they can reach me through Pilgrim and Associates. It's on West 60th Street, and you can contact me at 347-949-2287.
Can you repeat that number one more time?
Yes, Pilgrim and Associates, it's 347-949-2287. And if you want to leave a message on the soccer network number, it's 212-447-0932.
Well, thank you very much, Lyndelle, for your time today, and thank you for sharing your insights with regard to harassment,
Absolutely.
with regard to investigations, and also your passion, that which is soccer. And thank you, the viewers of Workplace TV, the first stop for finding solutions to issues in the workplace, whether you're an employee or an employer. I'm Ricardo Granderson. Be well and be successful.